Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of Hiker Sessions. This is where we speak to long-distance hikers, day hikers, and everyone in between. Today, we are joined by Howard Rizzio, known on the trail as Wingit. His journey, let me tell you, is nothing short of extraordinary. From a life marked by addiction, crime, and redemption, Wingit has worn many titles: Marine, police officer, real estate executive, ex-convict, and now Appalachian Trail Thru Hiker, class of 2024. Clean and sober now, Howard's path from rock bottom to the summit of Katahdin is a powerful story of resilience and hope. Welcome to the show, Wingit.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Hey, since I first met you, you have a very magnetic personality. I met you last year. You were looking for a shuttle in the middle of the 100-mile wilderness.
Yeah.
And, being in for sales for 32 years, I have a pretty good feeling about people. I knew right away I liked you. And then I was fortunate enough, I saw you after you finished your
Yeah.
summit at the hostel in Millinocket.
Yeah.
And what I really love about the AT community, I just happened to be spending the night at Shaw's Hiker Hostel this year. I woke
Yeah.
up the next morning and I saw you. I'm like, man, I know that guy. And it was you, man. And when we hugged, and it was like, it had been like a minute since I last saw you. It was great to see you. So I want to get into a bunch of stuff. The many lives of Wingit.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
just go back. You get out of high school. Do you go right into the Marines out of high school? What's that look like? Take us down that road.
Yeah, I did. And listen, man, I didn't have a bad childhood, but I didn't really, I didn't have a lot of family. Like, we're transplants from New York to Florida. And, when I was probably, in fifth grade or maybe 11 years old. And so, like, I never knew my cousins or aunts and uncles or grandparents, and my family was really kind of not chaotic. It was pretty normal in my sense. It's the only experience I had. But my father worked a lot, and my mother, he owned his own plumbing company, and my mother was, I had two little brothers, like 10 years younger than me, 8 and 10 years younger than me. So by the time I was 11, I was kind of like, my mother had her hands full, and me and my older brother were just kind of on our own. And I never had like a mentorship. I was a pretty smart kid, but like I didn't know anything about college. I was that kid who really didn't know like what he wanted to be when he grew up, and I still don't, to some degree. And the only thing I knew, all my brothers are plumbers, right? They followed my dad. The only thing I knew was I didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? I wasn't, I was kind of athletic, a little above average, but I wasn't like super athletic or anything. Um, so yeah, I think, I'd like to say I wanted to, it'd be probably better to say I wanted to like living a life of adventure, but it was nothing like that. It was like I didn't really know anything else, and I saw a couple cool kids that had joined the Marine Corps, and I knew a guy in the Marine Corps, and I was just like, you know what, I I jumped in, like my name Wingit really goes back a long way, man, and I didn't give myself that name, but it's kind of beautiful how the AT works, and it just kind of because I feel like I've been doing that my whole life, without a plan, just really kind of like leaping into things.
How long were you in the Marines? How long were you in for?
5 years, yeah, 5 years, and I probably would have stayed because I didn't have a plan when I got out either, but, I kind of I had a child, like, with pretty much a one-night stand in the Marine Corps, and, like, not I never thought I'd see her again, and kinda got the old Red Cross letter about the pregnancy, and so I flew home 9 months later and saw my child born. I got married the next day to a pretty much stranger, and that life really isn't conducive to, to family life. I thought I was doing the honorable thing. This is a man's responsibility, but that didn't last very long, that relationship. So,
I mentioned in the open that you got into law enforcement. Was that right
mhm.
after you get out of the Marines? Did it take a while
Yeah.
before you decided to do that, or?
No, I mean, it was the same thing. It was kind of like, what was my skill set? I still didn't know what I wanted to be. It was like, what was my skill set? Like I knew how to shoot a gun, I knew how to handle myself physically a little bit. And I could drink beer pretty good. So it was like either was going to join an outlaw motorcycle gang or like be in law enforcement, and so I joined the sheriff's department as a patrol deputy, and I've always been pretty good at whatever I did, not great at anything, but pretty good at everything. And so I rose pretty quick. I think I made detective in 2 years and narcotics detective in 2 years. And um, yeah, but it was never my plan or like dream to do any of that. Like, it just kind of it made sense. I needed a job, I needed a career, and to some degree, like I was an insecure, like I wore this air of confidence, but I was kind of an insecure guy, and who was identityless. And the Marine Corps kind of gave me an identity, and law enforcement was a visible identity, at that time in my life, looking back now, I didn't know it then. I kind of needed to be noticed, and so it fit me pretty well. It was a mask that fit pretty well.
You said you mentioned that, you made detective, like, pretty quickly, a couple of years, that
Uh-huh.
sounds I don't know law
Uh-huh.
enforcement, but that sounds pretty quick to me. Did that have to do with, just you being an achiever, or were you looking for more validation, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was consciously looking for any validation, but at that time I didn't even know what validation was, but looking back, I could clearly see that like I was always unfulfilled, and so I was always striving for like, accomplishment or achievement and recognition, I guess, and to some degree, I think I needed that. Like I needed like it was like my fuel. It was like food, like to survive on. I had to be noticed, and I had to be the center of attention. I had to be in the middle of the crowd. I was the loudest guy. I was kind of a frat style like drinker, I wasn't a quiet like in the corner kind of guy. I had to be loud and boisterous and opinionated, and it served me well in a lot of areas. Like I think everything seemingly good, seemingly bad, like, but at some point it just kind of really took control over my life, like, I was very good at accomplishing things. I wasn't very good at just being, you know what I mean? Like, I was a human doing, not a human being, and, I always had to kind of strive for the next thing.
It's interesting you say that because I read where you said that you were happy, but you were always looking for more happiness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like I tell people today like that happiness is an emotion, right? And it's fleeting. It comes and goes just like sadness does or anger does, and contentment is really my goal today is like to be okay in any situation regardless of the circumstances. Like I don't seek happiness anymore because like even when I was happy, even when I accomplished something or I got recognized for something, it was like I wanted to be 5% happier, you know what I mean? If only I could be a little bit happier, it was never enough. And that's just a rabbit hole that I discovered in myself that I was never going to reach, so I had this major shift, and I don't want to get ahead, but when I had that major shift, it was like, wow, like nothing was ever going to fill that, and I'm not a real religious guy, but I'm a real conscientious, philosophical and kind of spiritual guy. And today, and I really realized like the problem wasn't that nothing was gonna satisfy, that there wasn't enough out there. There wasn't enough in here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned that you could drink beer. Did drinking or alcohol ever become a problem while you were a police officer or detective?
Oh, yeah, I mean, and that's like, I was a narcotics detective, and, what's, what's kinda hypocritical, and I understand that, and I don't mind addressing it, is, like, I was very, very anti-drug. But, like, I was I wouldn't probably call myself an alcoholic at that time, like, because I was still achieving, the definition to me is kinda shallow of, like, what an alcoholic is, but I was certainly, like, a frat style drinker. I always drank to get drunk. Like I was always the loudest guy in the room. I was really good with my hands, so I didn't mind being physical. Like, and I'm talking off duty. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be in bar fights and even as a cop. Um, I I I I couldn't see the truth. I couldn't see that like I would even drink and drive, like, and it wasn't this badge of honor or anything. It was like, I didn't arrest people for DUIs because like, I actually thought I had morals, right? Because I drink and drive, like I'm not going to do that to somebody else. It was really a ignorant, way to live because I didn't understand. Even though I couldn't see my own like behavior as being anything hypocritical at all, and it's kind of when I look back on it, it's remarkable that I wasn't the only one, man. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like this fraternity, and it's really like how we separated ourselves, that this was okay. Maybe it was how would you refer that to? Like the pressure was building so much, we needed a way to blow off steam, and we justified it and rationalized it away. You know what I mean? And not everybody, but certainly the cool kids kinda, because I always looked at myself as like a cool kid, and I kept getting promoted or recognized, and like so in my mind, it was like it was paying off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You get your first DUI in 2013. Were you
Mhm.
still on the force then?
Oh, no, I left once again, I left law enforcement in 2004.
Okay.
Um, and I left law enforcement because, you know, I had, I stepped into real estate, and the first deal I ever made in real estate, I made significant money, and it was a $2.7 million closing that I had, my very first deal. And I made six figures on that deal. And I was like, you would think I had arrived, right? Like I just made more money than I ever made in my life. And this was 2003. And and somebody offered me a partnership in purchasing a brokerage firm that was already there. And because, I think other people recognized, and this guy was kind of a developer or a property speculator, I would say, and had some pretty good money. And he recognized that I sold, like, I made a deal most people don't make in their entire career, in my first one. So like, so I partnered with somebody, and we bought a Century 21, and I brokered the office, and still didn't know what I was doing, but still trying to reach to the next level. And so I left in 2004, and that's really when my drinking and other nefarious activity took off.
What point did you get into things more than drinking? When did, you kind of went to that next level? Is that when you started making more money and in real estate?
Well, I mean, I think I don't want to blame anybody, but again, it comes back to me. Like, I made more money than I had ever made in my life. I now owned a company or brokered a company. Um, my name was on the door. I had a big comfy chair. I was the guy, man, and but I was surrounded with people that had more than me. My new partner was very affluent. He had about a $30 million investment to purchase real estate, and I wanted to be in that club, man. And I couldn't see at that time that they partaked in some dry goods. And I was very anti-drug my whole life. I'm in my early 30s, and it was kind of like I I didn't look at them the way I looked at street drugs, because these people had money, and status, and so it's like I did something because I wanted to become something. You know what I mean? And I didn't see it as inauthentic. I didn't see it as like selling my soul to the devil or anything like that. I'm like, these guys are paying taxes. They're uh, philanthropic, right? They're giving back to the community. Like maybe I had this all wrong. And I did drugs with them the first time. I did cocaine with them, and then my ego took off because here it was this kind of funny scenario. They're like, I'm doing cocaine with an ex-DEA agent, and like it was kind of a funny thing. I was getting noticed, I was getting recognized, and so I would contribute. And I had to be a big shot, right? And I had a little bit of money. So, I would buy some of the drugs in bulk, like buy the ounce and bring it in and throw it on the table. And because, because I got noticed, man. It was fun. Like as sad as that is, like that's how insecure I was as a human being. And I wore it really well, like this confidence, but inside I needed to be I needed to be noticed. I needed to be the guy that got attention. And that's really where it started. It was probably a good year after I'd been in real estate. So probably around 2005, I started, with a little bit of a cocaine addiction or habit, and yeah, man, it was a long, 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 painful ride from there, brother.
So we skip ahead to 2015. You're sitting in a Walmart parking lot, and in the
So, well,
greatest irony ever, the
yeah,
narcotics team that
yeah.
you used to work for arrests you in that parking lot for holding and distributing drugs. What I mean, people always talk about the rock bottom. Was that the moment for you?
Yeah, well, I think the rock bottom has levels to it, man. Like I think you mentioned I got a DUI in 2013, and that was like I rear-ended somebody, and that was my kind of my wake-up call, right? And it was this moment where I said, I got a problem, and by this time, like real estate, the market had already crashed. Like my life had already collapsed. I'd been through a bankruptcy, and I was kind of really like hanging on by a thread. I did some pharmaceutical. Ironically, I did some pharmaceutical sales, right? Like to supplement my income, and both legally and illegally, and so 2013, I realized like I had a little bit of a problem, and I started trying to go to recovery, but I still thought it was a drug problem, right? I didn't think it was a me problem. I thought it was a drug problem, and I suffered for 2 more long years, man. And then in May of 2015, I was publicly taken down at the Walmart parking lot, and in Florida by the same unit I used to work for, same guys I kicked indoors with, same, you know, and that was actually the pivotal moment, like where the first time I'd ever felt any peace, because I didn't realize that I was clinging to this image. I didn't realize I was clinging to identity. I didn't realize that I needed to be humiliated a little bit. I needed some humility in my life, and it came that day, man. I mean, it's like everything. It's like I was juggling these balls in my life, like right, my status in the community, my reputation, my pride, I had made it right, and now I lost it. But I was juggling these, and every now and then a ball would fall, like it does for everybody, and I would clean it up and still juggling, but I was still juggling all the other ones. In that moment, every ball I had fell to the ground. It broke, right? And it was like they seized my vehicles. I was publicly humiliated. But that was necessary for me to see, like, I didn't have any more balls to juggle. It was just, I didn't have a plan, And in that space, I think, I spent 2 months in jail before I could even bond out. I had a sale, I had multiple sales, of narcotics, and I didn't have anybody to call really, and in that moment was the first time that, I caught a glimpse of like peace, right? It was like I wasn't trying to get out of anything. I wasn't trying to become anything. It was like all of a sudden it was like, wow, my life's over. Um, but at the same time, there's a quote by Lao Tzu. It says, "Wonderful new beginnings are often disguised as painful endings." Right, and in that moment, like I realized my life wasn't over. That I had been living my life according to what everybody thought I should be, and I never really had done anything for myself. Or and so it was like I suddenly saw my life isn't over. Thank God it's just beginning, right? It's like I can rewrite this and be whatever I want to be because I don't have to hold up this reputation or this ego or this identity any longer.
It
So
sounds freeing to me. You
very
mentioned
freeing.
your bond hearing. Tell the
Mhm.
story real quick because I thought it was interesting about the judge who presided over your bond hearing.
Yeah, in 2006, I saw the decline of like the real estate market, and I had an undergraduate degree, and I really had no desire to be a lawyer. But again, like if you go back to, and I don't think this is just a Wingit problem or a Howard problem, right? I think this is kind of a lot of people's problems. Like, what's next? Even hikers, right? It's like you hike the trail. It's like, what's next? I'm going to be a triple crowner, right? It's like I had accomplished all this stuff, and it's like I needed sustenance. So I'm like, maybe I'll go to law school. Like I was a cop, I was a Marine, I had kind of been successful in business. It's like, I'll go to law school. And so I applied to go to law school in 2006, and there was a local judge who wrote me, you need 3 letters of recommendations. And I got a recommendation from a local judge. And that judge was sitting on the bench in 2015 at my first appearance. And the universe has a way of God is a comedian, man. Like, and it gives us what we need when we need it. And I'm sure I humiliated him too, and he punished me. Whether I thought it was fair at the time or not, I'm like, I'm not gonna run, like why is my bond so high, but it was necessary for me because it made me sit there for a couple of months before I could even get the funds to bond out. And um, also in that line, there was a prosecutor. This is a beautiful story, right? There was a prosecutor that I worked closely with. She handled all the narcotics cases when I was a detective, and she had become a defense attorney now. So I hired her to represent me, and she never judged me. And that woman now has taken the original judge's seat, and I got to spend 2 years going into the courthouse and being a mentor to veterans with substance abuse problems in that same woman's courtroom, and that taught me about service, and it allowed me to give back to the community. And thankfully she never judged me and actually welcomed me in her courtroom. And so it's like full circle, right? It's like so it's really been a beautiful story. It's not a tragedy one. It's not a tragic one. It's been a beautiful story of letting go, right? I'm no longer trying to become anybody. I'm letting go of the things that don't define me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does a lot. You said so you ended up spending about a year in prison, and
Yeah.
I heard you say that during that year, some of the relationships that you had in there were the closest relationships that you ever have. 2 things, did it surprise you, and why do you think that was?
What surprised me is it like, oh, and we hear the rhetoric a lot in our news cycle and things of that nature, and that all these so I stayed in jail. I ended up having to go back. I bonded out. I did about 2 months. I bonded out, and about 10 months later, I accepted a sentencing plea and to go back and do a year, and I had about 10 months to do, and I went back, and I walked in as free as I've ever felt. Right? It was like, and I refused protection, even though I used to be in law enforcement. I refused protection. I felt like that was my place. Number one, I wasn't afraid of anybody, and number two, I had shifted. I had changed so dramatically, and when I went in there, I realized that when I was a cop, I looked at things so black and white, like you broke the law, you're going to jail, and I could suddenly see that I had been breaking the law my whole life, even when I was a cop, I drinking and drive, and I realized that selfishly to some degree, it's like when I got arrested, I'm like, I'm not a criminal. I'm sick. I have a problem, right? And like, guess who else does? Every single person in jail, man. And when you can start seeing people not as bad people, but as people that maybe had gone through something in their life, their circumstances weren't as good as mine. Whether you're a white person or grown up in poverty. I mean, people that are incarcerated, most of them are grown up in poverty, man. Like not a lot of white collar crimes in there, and they had no opportunities, and who am I to say that these people are bad people? And when you sit down with them one on one, just like the Appalachian Trail, I believe people are good one on one, right? And it's like I think when we get wrapped up in groups and politics and dividing lines and things of that nature is where we start to stray a little bit. But one on one, I learned chess from this old black man who'd been in there for probably 30 years, probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my entire life. And I stopped looking at differences of people, and I started to see similarities.
So you get out of prison, say, sometime in 2016. Fill in the blanks for me between, briefly, if you will, between 2016 and when you hit, Springer Mountain in March of 2024. And how'd you even decide to hike the Appalachian Trail?
So I got out and it's probably late 2016, and again, I was free in jail all that time. Like I felt great and my life is going to begin when I get out, and I got out, and the real world hits you a little bit. I didn't have a car, I didn't have a license. Like I'm literally starting from zero, and the poor me's and the comes back, and I ended up relapsing for a little while, and really it was kind of, so I got probably relapsed in 2017 sometime, and I am getting arrested again in May of 2018. And I'm one of those guys that, like, for whatever reason, I take everything to the extreme. Hence my first backpacking trip is to Maine, right? It's like so my drug use, imagine that. Like I took it to the extreme, and I got arrested again in 2018, and even though I had been sober for a little while, I fell back, and so when that arrest, I knew immediately, like, that I needed help this time. Like I went to jail and it was beautiful, right? And it sobered me up and it gave me mental clarity, but like I'd never got any treatment, so I went to treatment, and from that moment on, I really threw myself into recovery, and I spent probably, from 2018 to 2023, like a good 5 years, where I spent 7 days a week, 40 hours a week, like in a recovery setting, like being of service to other people, and sponsoring other people, and really trying to help, right? And and I really enjoyed it, but what I noticed for me is, and the name of my YouTube channel is called AwakenedAve, and it's where I discuss awakening and whatever, whether you think that's religious or just like this realization, it doesn't matter to me. But I lost a couple of guys. I had this little entourage in recovery too, right? And people, I'm helping 5, 6, 7 people, and all of a sudden, they're dropping like flies, and one guy dies in early 23, and then another guy relapses, goes to prison. Another guy takes some cops on a high speed chase, and they started dropping. And I'm like, what the heck, man? I'm not very effective. How can I be more effective? And then there was one guy in particular, and his name was well, I won't mention his name, but um, the guy was doing great, man. He turned his life around. He had about 10 months sober, and he was homeless when I met him, he's got a job and a car and a place, and his relationship's restored with his family, and he's immersed in service. He's really doing well, and he relapsed one night, and he called me, and 2 weeks later, I found him dead. We talked every day in that 2 weeks, and I ended up on Father's Day of 23. I kind of had to kick in his door, and I found him dead, and it really impacted me a lot, and really, I'm a guy who tries to read the spiritual signs, and the message he sent me was probably one of the most prophetic messages I've ever gotten. And it essentially said, I'm sorry for being selfish. I love you. You should do more. Start a YouTube channel, maybe a blog. If you can help 1 out of 1,000 people, then you've done well. And, God will bless you. And it goes on and on and on. And I didn't even notice this at the time. Because it was so long. I didn't notice this till I was in New Hampshire on my hike, actually. But it says, always remember God will be with you, whether you were in a mountain or in a valley, right? I mean, it was so prophetic, and it was like, I'm a Florida guy. I've never been in the mountains, man, I decided to take a step back from recovery. There were some things recovery helped save my life, but I started to notice that I just created another identity, right? Like before, I was the super guy and the cop, the Marine, the cop, the real estate guy, the coach of Little League, and now I just created like I'm the helper, like my cause is noble, however it is, I started to see that I was in the same spiritual trap of creating identities, and so I started a YouTube channel in October of 23, and my lease was coming up on my condo, and people would ask me all the time, like, and I used to have this phrase, you could be content in any situation regardless of the circumstances, and when my lease was coming up, somebody asked me what I was going to do, and I'm like, I don't know. I'd be happy in a tent, right? And I'm like, matter of fact, maybe I'll try to do 60 days in the tent, a little naked and afraid, except for I'm not naked and I'm not afraid. And it was really in jest. It was a joke. But I knew instantly that that's what I was going to do. So I kind of gave away all my possessions. Gave them away because I didn't want a place to run back to. And I said, and it was beautiful timing with the YouTube channel that this guy kind of directed me to start. I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, you know what? I'll record this and I'll put it on my YouTube channel, and I'll show people, right, that I can be content without stuff, right? And I moved into a tent, and the rest is history, man, and from there, I loved it so much. I felt even more free, like letting go of my possessions. I didn't want it to end. Um, but I was on somebody's land, kind of boondocking, and so that led me to um, where can I live in a tent full time, and the Appalachian Trail came up, and that led me to my hike. Never hiking before, never backpacking, never been in a mountain. Um, Beautiful experience, man. It wasn't my plan, and hence the name Wing It.
So just staying in that tent all those days, like, that was kind of the impetus to get you to do the AT?
Man,
Like, had you even heard of the AT, or how'd that all happen?
I think I had heard of it, like, but I'd never backpacked. No, I mean, I didn't. I had no conception of what it was, man, at all. Like, it wasn't even on my radar when not even a thought. Like when I moved into the tent, but the tent was like, man, the tent was beautiful because I was alone. I The tent is so uncomfortable, as you know, right? It's like I started to realize my house was kind of safety and security, right? It's like it was my prison, man, right? It's like it's the most significant expense that most of us have. We work 40, 50, 60 hours a week to pay for it. So when we go home, we don't want to leave. We are so comfortable in our house, the refrigerator, the bathroom, the hot water, the television, the air conditioning, right? It's the comforts of home, right? But when I was in the tent, it was so uncomfortable. I was out walking more. I was in nature. I was engaging with people. I was because I wasn't gonna. I'm in Florida. It's 90 degrees. I wasn't gonna sit in my tent all day and just relax, right? So I was living more. Like so, for me, it was addition by subtraction. Like the more things I let go of, the more my life got improved. Right? It's like and none of that was planned, man. I mean, it just kind of happened to me, and I didn't want to give it up. I didn't think 60 days was enough. I probably bit off more than I could chew by hiking the AT, right? Like without ever having a backpacking trip ever, you know. I was naive, but I think naivety is what got me to the end, right? It was like um, I at this point in my life, I was very, very conscious that it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm usually miserable doing it. It's not that I love doing something else, right? It's like I always want to be on the grass over there. That grass is greener, you know? And so I knew the problem was with me and that there's no problem with what I'm doing. What is wrong is the way I perceive it. So when I came on Appalachian Trail, I couldn't even conceive of making it to Katahdin. And I didn't care if I did, right? It was like, I know that if I feel like crap, I can go back home, but I'll probably feel like crap there too. Or you know what I mean? And so it was like, I'm not really feeling like crap. I really had this ability to kind of turn it off. And now, don't get me wrong, I was a Marine, so I'm very well immersed in like putting my head down and grinding through things. But I didn't want my hike to be that way. I wanted it to be um intentional and not to achieve anything. And actually, if you watch my videos, I actually said like if I make it to Katahdin, I might just drop the mic and walk away because there is no trophy. I don't need recognition from people. I don't need to be validated. I don't need people to cheer me on anymore. I used to thrive on that, and now I don't need it. Um, I like it, and like everybody else, but it doesn't dominate me anymore. You know.
You really make some good points there. I feel, and there may be people, and you may even disagree me and with me, but I think for the people who make it the whole way, at the end, for me at least, speaking for myself, it was a way more of an internal feeling. Like my first thought wasn't to, oh, I can't wait to put my picture of me at the sign on social media. It was all in internal achievement that I, later on is after I felt very proud about. Maybe there's some people at the beginning, and maybe those people don't make it. Those people that start with, oh, I can't wait till I get to Katahdin and show everybody my picture on the summit. I don't know. I'm generalizing really, really
Yeah, I mean,
wide there. What do you think?
I think that it's individualistic, right? It's like everybody has a different reason for being out there. You know, I already knew my ability. It's funny, like I think I'm in Gatlinburg or something like that, and my daughter messaged me and she goes, I'm talking to her on the phone, and she goes, I got to tell you, Dad. I didn't think you'd make it this far. Now this is just Gatlinburg, right? I'm like, what? You know, like, what? Like, you know, in my mind, I had already accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish in life. Like, I know when I put my mind to something, I can do it. Um, but at the same time, I didn't want to like, I may be the only person I've ever met that came out to attempt a through hike that didn't give a crap if he made it. You know what I mean? I think everybody aspires to make it, but like I didn't really care. And my first zero, I didn't do the approach trail, right? Because I knew I was gonna get my butt kicked. My first zero was at Hawk Mountain Shelter, 8 miles in, man. You know, I zeroed there. Like I had 5 zeros by the time I made it to Neil's Gap, right? Like 31 miles, 5 zeros, right? Because I was out of shape and you know, I really didn't care if I made it. But I was pretty intentional about enjoying it the whole way and documenting it the whole way. That was really my motivation, not personal achievement, right? It was like to show. So it's funny, like I spent all this time in real estate, or I mean, in recovery, telling people how to change their life. Like, this is what you got to do to change your life. And people were still dying. And somewhere along the line of starting the YouTube channel, of living in the tent, of going out on the Appalachian Trail, the narrative started to shift to, like, I don't want to tell people how to finish the trail or how to recover. Or I want to show people that it's possible, and then let them choose if they want to pursue that or not, right? So it wasn't about showing people or telling people what to do anymore. It was about showing people that it's, I think before anybody can change their life, maybe they need to know there's another way to live first, right? Like, because most of us think like this is the only way to live, to just keep fighting and keep, striving and keep trying hard. And actually, it's a complete opposite of trying. It's letting go of trying. It's doing my best in the moment, but letting the outcome, handle itself, man. Like, I say this all the time. The most beautiful moments in my life happen to me, not because of me, right? Like, they're spontaneous. And the trail, the living in the tent, my arrest, or like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, those moments were unplanned. They were spontaneous. They shifted me. They changed my life. Um, and they're beautiful. I couldn't have planned that stuff, and the sad part about it is that I usually don't even recognize it. And, my friend had to die for me to, for me to kind of step out of my fear. I had been in this recovery model, like, t- building up, this is my purpose, like, and really what I was afraid to go out and live in the real world. And, so, it took his dying to kind of help me to say, like, what the heck am I doing? I'm in the same jam. Like, before, I needed a higher paying job, or I needed to be noticed, or I needed to be recognized, or I needed to drink to make myself feel better. Like, I was uncomfortable. And now now I'm in recovery helping people, but I need to have them succeed, like, it's the same spiritual kind of jam. And so I came out on the trail, like, pretty intentional about just trying to show people and not tell them anymore. Like, this is what you have to do, because I really don't know what anybody has to do. Like, you know, uh, I don't know what anybody needs, and nobody knows what I need. It's, I just want to be kind and caring and loving, and, point people in the right direction. I think awakening or spirituality or connection is self-realized, right? It's self-realization, it's self-discovery, and I can't help anybody self-discover. I could just say it's possible, and by my example, not by my words, right? And
Yeah. I think
so
you did a great job showing people and with the example, and I'll make sure for anybody watching here to put all your links, your YouTube channel, your Facebook page, because I think you continue to show people, what is possible. And in that line of thought, so you came back to the AT this
I
year,
did.
2025. Talk a little bit about what that looked like compared to hiking it and completing it in 2024.
um yeah, I mean, as Hurricane Helene happened, and like, and my hike was such a beautiful experience. Man, you already know the people along the trail, the people you meet, the trail angels, the communities, like the hostels, all of it is just so warm. And like, when I was in the 100 Mile Wilderness when Helene happened, and I almost quit, right? Because, like, I'm like, I want to go down there and help those communities. And it really foolishly, like, because there's nothing I could have done anyway, right? And um but it was in the back of my brain. And I'm a big service to other people guy. And I got to tell you, I don't fall into depression too much, but after the hike, right, we were talking about that a little bit beforehand, like, it started to hit me, and it's like, what's next? What am I going to do next? And, so for whatever reason, it came to me, I'm going to kind of, follow the fresh ground or the Miss Janet model. And I'm going to come out, and my new adventure is I'm gonna learn how to live in my vehicle, and I'm gonna support other people's hikes, right? And so I went out and bought a Suburban specifically for this so that me and my dog could it's big enough for me and my dog to sleep in, but it's also so I could fold the seats up and I can shuttle 6 or 7 guys at one time, and because I knew how much that meant for me, and how, so I came out, never lived in my car before, really, never like traveled in my like that, and lived in the mountains, and I knew I was kind of a stranger. Like, I hiked last year, but I want to help people, but I'm standing at Woody Gap handing out sodas, right? It takes a little time before people get to know you, and you can hand out your phone number all you want, but hikers are hikers. They're like, I don't want to bother anybody, like, and they just hike. And so it took a little bit of time, um, but man, it was more rewarding than my own hike. And I mean that because I never cared if I finished. But to see other people from day one, to see them go through what we went through from day one to summiting, right? Like when they're so afraid in the beginning, and they don't even have trail names yet, and then like to see them at the end and they're so confident, and just not wanting it to end, ready for it to end, but not wanting it to end, and the relationships along the way. So it's like last year I summited Katahdin and my tramley and seeing those success. This year I got to see hundreds of hikers like change, right? And I did a video on this before, that collective achievement is so much better than personal achievement, and I got to witness that this year, and it cost me, it was a significant cost to me, and it's so unsustainable, right? It's like, but it was worth it, man. I gave away a lot of gear. There's zero budget hikers. I gave my trekking poles out. I gave headlamps out. I gave my my tarp to my hammock system out. I gave CNOC bags and dehydrated meals, and my partner from last year, Thrive, mailed me boxes and boxes and boxes of dehydrated meals that I would just hand out to people in shuttles, and I got to know everybody, man. And it was, man, if I could ever say to anybody who's hiked before, if they have the opportunity to do something like that, it's one thing to sit up at a trailhead for 3 days and do trail magic. And I'm not diminishing that, because that's beautiful, right? It's like, that is a sacrifice. You're giving up your time, your money, your energy. And I believe real service is a sacrifice. Service that we want to do is kind of a hobby, right? It's like, but when you really sacrifice yourself, like, I don't believe there's any greater teacher in the world and man, I'm so proud of those guys this year. Like, so much adversity, and so many people didn't think they'd make it. Even the ones that didn't make it. I say this a lot, like, making it is only relevant to you. Like, how much courage does it take to leave your family, leave your neighborhood, leave your job, to even show up to Springer Mountain, right? It's like, when everybody thinks you're crazy and like, you're going to do what? And then let's say you only make it a week. You got to spend a week in the mountain. You've already stepped away. You've already won, man. And then you spend a week in the mountains, in the woods, like, psh, you know, you've already won. There is no failure, man. So I try to help people to realize, like, yes, it's beautiful hiking up Katahdin, but you still got to walk back down, man. Right? It's like it's like
Yeah.
the journey continues, man. And if you've even made it out here, you've already done more than most people ever will. Because most of us, right? And I put me in that category even before, talk about what I would love to do, and never do it. So I think showing up, man, is the hardest step. And once you've done that, like, you've already accomplished so much.
Yeah, I agree, and I saw you went the whole way too from Georgia to Maine because, as I mentioned in the open, I saw you at Shaw's, and then I saw a picture, I think it was on your Facebook page, of you standing at the summit like this, your second Katahdin summit. So,
Yeah.
kind of, we'll wrap it up here because you've been really gracious with your time. But tell me about hiking up that second time up Katahdin.
Oh, I kicked my butt this year because I hadn't hiked all year, and it certainly didn't have the luster that it had last year, because that's like the culmination of such a long hike. But it meant more to me to hike up there with the group of people I was supporting and see them at the sign, right? It's like I had already been there. I had my moment in the sun, man, and like, yeah, man, that's priceless stuff. I mean, hiking the trail is just it's priceless, man. And it does. And yes, I spent 7 months this year following the bubble from Georgia to Maine in my vehicle, and I got to learn how to live in my vehicle. I got to learn all the trailheads. I got to see the Appalachia Trail from a different perspective, from like a shuttle driver, and shuttle drivers should charge more, by the way. Like, that is a not a fun job, but and to see them accomplish things, man, I wouldn't change it for the world, man.
So let's end with this. What's next for, and this probably is a terrible question because your trail name is Wingit. What do you know what's next? What's your plan
Yeah,
for 2026?
I do, man, and I think I spent 2 years on the trail, and I will always be a part of the trail. I don't think I would do what I'm going to do next year. Um, I think it's time for me to. I walked away from everything in October of 23, so 2 years ago. I think it's time for me to embody some of the lessons that I've learned on the trail, and maybe my next journey is to show people that I'm not just a free guy walking around the trail. It's that I can go back. I'm not running away from life. I can go back to life. Maybe I put on a shirt and tie again, and maybe I go to work because it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I can be content in any situation, regardless of the circumstance, whether I'm at work, whether I'm hiking the trail. I don't think you have to hike the Appalachia Trail to find personal freedom, right? It certainly helps, but it's not a requirement. Like you can find personal fulfillment with whatever you're doing, and job, no job, trail, no trail, jail, no jail, right? It's like so it will involve probably I will probably come back out and do some trail magic next year, but I won't be doing what I done this past year. It's time to embody some of the lessons the trail's given me, man, and I don't know what's next completely, but I'm confident I'm going to be okay and content in any situation.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds like an awesome plan, even for a guy with a trail name, Wing It. Look, I can't thank you enough coming on because I thought you put it well. If someone hears this, if you help 1 in 1,000 people, it's 100% worth it. And for some reason, the community, I'm sure it will bring us together again
Yeah,
in some
absolutely.
fashion. Whether I see you at my buddy Huckleberry's hostel next
Yeah,
spring when
yeah.
I'm down there again on an annual visit or trail days or something like that.
Yeah, and that's
It
cool too that we had he early on, like, I was trying to keep up with those guys, man, and I didn't meet you on the trail till the end, and you had already summited, but we had family members together, man, or in common, and I want to say this before I leave too, that like this kid who comes up to me in recovery and asks me for help, and I helped for 10 months, that I found who helped who, man. Right? Like, he might have passed, but who helped who? Because he showed me that, like, he inspired me to start the YouTube channel, to move into which caused me to move into the tent, which caused me to hike the trail. And I believe, like, the relationships we have are always reciprocal, man. We learn from everybody, and I'm just grateful for all of that stuff, man, and grateful to be on here and to share space with you again, Soggy.
Yeah, well, thanks again for coming on. And I think I'll end with this. I think relationships, if they're not reciprocal, then they don't work, right?
Yeah.
I think they have to be, and I think that's something that I one of the many things that I learned while I was out on the trail. But look, hey, thanks again for coming on. It's a pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you all day. You make me happy when I talk to you. So Best of luck, and let's stay in touch. Okay.
Appreciate it, man.
All right. See you.